Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
Have you ever sat across from someone at a dinner table, listening to them explain something with total certainty, and felt a strange flicker of doubt creep into your own chest? Not doubt about them, doubt about yourself. You start to think, maybe I'm the one who's missing something here. That flicker isn't weakness. It's your mind trying to make sense of something it doesn't yet have a name for. Let me tell you about a man named MacArthur Wheeler. In 1995, in the middle of the afternoon, he walked into two banks in Pittsburgh with no mask, no disguise, nothing covering his face at all. He looked directly into the security cameras. He even smiled. Later that night, when police showed him the footage, he stared at the screen in genuine disbelief. He wasn't shocked that he'd been caught robbing a bank. He was shocked that the camera had seen his face at all. Because Wheeler believed, with his whole heart, that rubbing lemon juice on his skin had made him invisible. He'd heard that lemon juice can be used as invisible ink. And somewhere in his mind, that single fact turned into a conviction. If it hides ink from paper, it will hide a face from a lens. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't unwell. He was simply completely certain about something that made no sense at all. A psychology professor named David Dunning heard this story and couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because Wheeler was foolish, but because of the quality of his certainty. How does a person become that confident in something so wrong? Dunning teamed up with a researcher named Dunning-Kruger, and in 1999, they published a paper that would go on to name something almost all of us have felt, even if we never had the words for it. They called it what we now know as the Dunning-Kruger Effect. Here is the heart of what they found. The very absence of a skill is what blocks a person from seeing that the skill is missing. It isn't that people choose to be overconfident. It's that they don't have the internal tools to notice the gap in the first place. Psychologists call this metacognition. The ability to observe your own thinking from the outside, the way you'd watch a friend from across the room. For Wheeler to catch his own error, he would have needed some understanding of light, of cameras, of basic physics. Without that foundation, his mind had nothing to hold up as a mirror. There was no way for him to see what he could not see. Dunning and Kruger called this a double burden. First, you lack the skill. Second, you lack the ability to recognize that you lack it. So you keep walking forward, wrapped in a confidence that has nothing underneath it. Now, you might be thinking, surely that was one strange man, one strange moment. It wasn't. Dunning and Kruger ran the same pattern through ordinary people in ordinary settings. They gave university students a test on logic and grammar, then asked each student to guess how they'd ranked compared to their classmates. The students who scored the lowest consistently guessed they had scored among the highest. Many placed themselves in the top third of the class while sitting near the very bottom of it. And here's the part that surprised almost everyone. The students who scored the highest did the opposite. They underestimated themselves. Because the material felt manageable to them, they assumed it must have felt just as manageable to everyone else. Their own competence became invisible to them, hidden inside the assumption that, of course, this is easy. Isn't it easy for everyone? This same pattern shows up far beyond a classroom. Walk into any workplace and ask people to rate their own performance. The employees with the least experience often rate themselves the highest. The most seasoned, most quietly capable people tend to hesitate before rating themselves at all because they've spent enough time in the work to know exactly how much of it they still don't fully control. It isn't complicated once you see it clearly. To judge whether you're good at something, you first have to know what excellence actually looks like. But when you're brand new to a subject, you've never stood close enough to that excellence to measure yourself against it. You've only seen the surface. And the surface, almost always, looks simple. There's a second layer to this, something researchers call the illusion of explanatory depth. Think about the last time you watched a video that broke down something enormous, maybe the economy, maybe the brain, maybe grief, into 5 tidy minutes. You nodded along. It made sense. You felt like you understood it. But following an explanation and actually understanding a system are two very different experiences, and our minds often blur the line between them. It's not a flaw in your intelligence. It's your brain conserving energy, the same way it does with almost everything. Rather than rebuild a concept from the ground up, Your mind accepts an explanation that simply sounds reasonable and files it away as knowledge. This is exactly why the Dunning-Kruger Effect shows up in family arguments over dinner, in comment sections, in group chats where everyone suddenly becomes an expert in medicine or economics or someone else's marriage. So if confidence doesn't rise in a straight line as we learn, what does the real pattern look like? Psychologists describe it in 4 stages, and I'd guess you've lived through at least one of them yourself. You know very little, but you believe you know almost everything. This is the very beginning of learning something, maybe a new language, maybe a new diet, maybe how to invest your savings. You read a handful of articles, watch a few videos, and suddenly you feel fluent. Your knowledge is thin, but your confidence is at its peak. You're ready to correct other people. You don't yet know how much you don't know because you haven't gone deep enough to find the edges of the subject. You start to realize you know almost nothing. The deeper you go, the harder it gets. You discover entire layers of the subject you never knew existed. Your confidence collapses here, sometimes painfully. You may feel discouraged, even embarrassed. But this is actually the turning point. This is the moment your understanding starts becoming real, because you're finally seeing the subject as it truly is, not as it appeared from a distance. You begin building genuine competence. You keep going instead of quitting. Your confidence returns, but slower this time, and quieter. You stop claiming certainty about everything, because now you understand the size of the whole picture. Your confidence is no longer a feeling. It's something earned, built from actual practice. Stage 4, you become someone who has real mastery. And here is the part almost no one expects. People at this stage are often less loud about their confidence than the beginners in stage 1. They've made enough mistakes to know they can still make more. Their certainty is careful, not because they doubt themselves, but because they respect how much is still unknown. The real danger isn't stage 2, sitting in doubt. The real danger is staying in stage 1 for years while believing you already live in stage 4. Picture a woman who has spent 20 years building a successful accounting firm. She is brilliant with numbers, respected by her clients, sharp as anyone in her field. Then one weekend, she watches a handful of videos about real estate investing and decides she now understands the property market well enough to put her retirement savings into it without asking a single question. That is stage 1, arriving quietly, disguised as competence, borrowed from somewhere else entirely. And here's what makes this especially dangerous for intelligent people. A person with a sharp mind doesn't run out of arguments the way an average person might. They can build an entire structure of reasoning to defend a belief that was never solid to begin with. They gather evidence that confirms what they already think and quietly dismiss everything that doesn't. Their own intelligence becomes the very thing protecting the mistake. A person of real wisdom isn't someone who claims to know everything. It's someone willing to say, out loud and without shame, in this particular area, I know nothing yet. Teach me. So what do we actually do with this? Once your mind slips into that illusion of certainty, willpower alone rarely pulls you out of it. You need small, deliberate habits that interrupt the pattern before it takes hold. Here are 4 that work. First, practice staying quiet before you speak. This sounds small, but it is genuinely hard. The next time a conversation turns to something unfamiliar to you, maybe a new medical study, maybe a cultural shift you don't fully understand, resist the urge to offer an opinion in the first 10 minutes. Just listen. Notice who is speaking from real depth and who is speaking from pure emotion. Silence gives your mind room to gather information instead of scrambling to defend a position it hasn't earned yet. Second, seek out the person who challenges you the most. Not to argue, to listen. Most of us build a comfortable circle of people who agree with us and admire us, and that circle becomes an echo chamber where we only ever hear our own voice reflected back. If you truly want to find your blind spot, sit down with the person who disagrees with you most sharply, and instead of preparing your rebuttal, ask yourself one honest question. If this person is even a little bit right, what exactly is that little bit? That single question can save you from a much bigger mistake later. Third, try what's known as the Feynman technique, named after the physicist Richard Feynman. If you believe you truly understand something, take a blank page and explain it as though you were teaching it to a curious child. No technical language allowed. No borrowed phrases. If you find yourself circling back to jargon or stumbling to fill the gaps, that's your answer. You understand less than you believed you did. Try it with something you feel certain about right now. Maybe how interest rates work, maybe why a certain relationship pattern keeps repeating in your life. You may notice the gaps faster than you expect. Fourth, keep a quiet reminder running in the back of your mind. I might be wrong. Not as self-doubt, but as a gentle check. Whenever you feel a surge of total certainty, especially the kind that makes you want to dismiss someone else as foolish, let that reminder surface. The people who understand a subject most deeply are rarely the ones claiming absolute certainty about it. If you find yourself feeling 100% sure about nearly everything in your life, that itself is worth sitting with. Here's what I want you to take from all of this. The Dunning-Kruger Effect was never meant to be a label we stick onto other people so we can feel superior. It's a mirror. It's a reminder to stay gentle with our own certainty so we don't end up like Wheeler, smiling at a camera, convinced that lemon juice had made him invisible. We live in a moment where information is everywhere, a few taps away on any subject imaginable. And that ease has created a strange kind of confidence. A world full of people who feel like experts after 5 minutes of scrolling. But real understanding was never meant to be instant. The cost of holding on to false confidence is rarely obvious right away. It shows up later in a relationship you couldn't see clearly, in money you lost because you never asked the right question, in years spent circling a skill you never let yourself actually learn. So here's my invitation to you. Think of one area in your life right now where you feel deeply confident, but where the real results tell a different story. Was there an argument you won recently? Not because you were right, but because you spoke with more emotion than the other person? Sit with that honestly. That discomfort is not a failure. It's the exact place where real growth begins. If this video helped you understand the trap your own mind can quietly build for you, or helped you feel a little more patient with the overconfident people in your life, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And before you go, tell me in the comments, what is one skill or subject you're just beginning to learn right now? Are you still in that early stage where everything feels easy? Or have you hit that harder stage where you're realizing just how much there is to understand? I genuinely love to know where you are in your own journey. I am reclaiming my peace.